Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in. Back for another week of the tie-in. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
Friday, TGIF.
yeah,
I like
I
that we're
know.
we're doing this on Fridays now. I don't know.
I
We're figuring
mean,
it out.
because we had a packed week. We had
Hmm.
four interviews this week, so
Yeah.
our Wednesday was totally booked up, and we didn't have time to do our little check-in banter thing. So
Yeah.
it's
And
been
then
super,
Thursday
like,
too.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So this has been a fun week of interviews. So I'm looking forward to getting those like polished
Yeah,
up and in the queue because I think folks are really gonna like them.
totally. I mean, just in the span, I mean, it just feels so lucky that we're having these wonderful conversations spanning
Hmm.
every corner of the industry and stretching the industry into what it is and trying to bring in new voices to help
Hmm.
inform the entertainment industry as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's interesting because, God, this goes full circle, right? This is how you and I met because years ago we were like, who's doing, some interesting thing in some other corner of the industry or in
Hmm.
another, market that we could use and implement in film and TV. And
Hmm.
that's where, your name came up and
Yeah.
Portable Electric and all. And then, look
Yeah,
what's
is
happened.
it
So,
it's just like I think that the entertainment industry has been operating on its own thing for a long time, and now there's just so much influence coming in. Also, it's bi-directional really because
mhm.
a lot of stuff that the film industry and entertainment industry are doing are cascading out to other industries, including like things like construction,
Yeah.
food waste, right? I mean, we talked to Shane as well, talking about food waste, but it's not just film. Film is a great testing ground as well
Yeah.
for new ideas and new pilot projects, and then that can then move into other industries that might be a little more risk averse.
Hmm.
So I don't
Hmm.
know, I just think it's absolutely so cool and humbling to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. Constantly learning. And I think that that's just super cool and interesting. So, you think, you've been working in this space for, 10, 12 years, and then there's always something to learn.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and then
mhm.
and then on that other end of things, I was on a podcast
Yes.
with Mo Dollywall and High Agency. It's called the High Agency Podcast, and it came out yesterday, I believe, or the day before.
Yeah. Out now.
Out
Out now.
now.
It's great, everyone. You guys need to listen
Yeah,
to Mark. You guys had a great conversation. I was sitting there like, oh my gosh. Oh my God.
yeah. It was just like I was just like I was like on the edge of my seat, and you're like, okay, what's gonna come out of my mouth at now, right? It's just like
It
okay,
was good.
and also the sound is really good. So for
Oh yeah,
those
they did a great
for those
job.
sound junkies out there, yeah, I've got my radio voice in full force on that
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just so good. Like, I mean, I just developed this like great friendship with Mo, and yeah, just a lot of good stuff to chat about. And yeah, really the production. It was actually a face to face, like in
Yeah.
real IRL. Like you don't
You
not
sound like you're
often.
20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
IRL has no age or
Does it
generation.
not? I don't know.
No.
I
Mm-mm.
feel like the younger people tend to use it more. I never use it.
Uh,
I'm too old. I don't
it's
know.
like face to face.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. So that's out. So High Agency Podcast. We'll link that on our own on tie-in page, and I'm gonna be sharing it through my own personal socials. Yeah.
Hmm.
So have a listen. Give me your feedback. It's a lot of fun.
It was great. It was great. It was great. Yeah. Yeah. And our conversation the other day, and writing and whatnot. I've been
Mhm.
trying to do that more and more. So I've got a couple projects in the works that I'm excited about. They're kind of in the, editing phase, got to go through multiple rounds and whatnot. But
Mhm.
I always want to do it. There's always a lot to say, but I just never feel
Yeah.
like I have enough time. So,
it's a use it or lose it kind of skill. Like like
Oh
people
God.
are barely writing their own stuff anymore. And there was that MIT research project that just came out a couple days ago around like that they've actually determined over a 4 month study that the use of ChatGPT is
Mm.
actually reducing like cognitive abilities like exponentially.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I haven't done too much like deep dive into the actual stuff, but it just came out. It was all over the internet. And so it's just
Huh.
interesting. It's like, if you don't use
Yeah.
your critical thinking muscle, like
Then
it
you just
atrophies
lose.
very quickly.
Ooh, God, that's
So you're
interesting.
flexing that
I'm
muscle.
trying. I'm so trying. It's like I always want to. Yeah, I'm trying very much. And it's difficult. It is not easy because I don't know, I take a lot of notes and I've got, notes
Hmm.
everywhere because I can't hold stuff in my head too long. I have to externalize it a bit. And I take all of these and then just try to put it together. What does this mean? What was I thinking? And all of this. So I mean, I have a bit of a process,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's
Yeah.
so interesting. I'll have to look it
Yeah.
up.
It's
And
it's kind of wild. I mean, it's all the things like it's like we know, right? Everybody
yeah, I guess.
knew, but and everybody knows. So yeah, it's super interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, something I think about a lot.
Well, there you go. That's the good and the bad of AI, I guess,
Exactly.
right? So, God, this keeps coming up. I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to get away from it. So,
No, no.
um,
Yeah, and then something fun though that we're following here and tracking is the show power folks,
yeah.
right? They're right now mid tour,
Hmm.
right, with Coldplay
Yeah.
powering some of these largest stadium shows with their show power batteries.
Hmm.
And that's super cool, right? I mean, I've seen them posts here and there online, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to catch up with them.
Yeah.
Wink,
I
wink,
know.
wink.
Wouldn't
At
that be
some
fun?
point, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're still sorting that out. But yeah, like I just love what they're doing, and hopefully, I mean, Coldplay can bring some awareness to them, because I always joke, right? If we do our job right, people notice us even less because there's no noisy generator behind the scenes.
Well, what I love is that, they are posting about it online.
Hmm.
So they're not, hiding by any means. And we're talking, people, they're out there, right? And so it just shows what's possible now and to what scale, right? Because if they're doing these big stages and it's a sold out concert and the thing's
Hmm.
got to work, like, they can handle it. And I think that it's courageous. It's, maybe some would say risky, but they seem to be like,
Oh
they know
yeah.
their stuff and they think, no, 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 this isn't risky. It's actually less risky than
Yeah, exactly.
generating.
There's more
Like,
redundancy built into the
yeah.
system.
So
Hmm.
like, and they're proving it. They're just proving it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
So
that's great.
keep going, guys. You're doing
Yeah.
great.
You got a couple fans over here. No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned consistency. God, this has
Hmm.
come up so much for me recently. Um, because I mean, I'm seeing it everywhere and I'm mostly seeing, you know, like I advocate for consistency because I think that consistency leads to continual improvement. If you can do it, you can get
Hmm.
better and better over time. And I'm seeing a lack of that
Yeah.
in our industry in various ways. And I don't know what this means. I think it's part of the idea of finding like lowest cost labor in a
Yeah.
given market and just going with that, for example. And this I'm talking about in relation to maybe a sustainability coordinator or sustainability manager or whatever that is, whatever that position is. That people are just, kind of going with the person, even they may not have enough experience or whatever. Meanwhile, you've got organizations, companies. I mean, like we want to work on everything. I'm not going to be shy about that. However, what I think it does provide is consistency over time and learning over time. And
Yeah.
I find that to be, and you could talk about it in relation to data. You could talk about it in relation to certain practices, with certain vendors. Like you want to improve over time,
Hmm.
and I find that it's not really
Well, I think
happening
people get
that
excited
way.
about a pilot project or get excited about some new initiative. They try it. It doesn't land as amazing as they thought it would be, and then they're like, "Oh well, we did it and it didn't really work." And it's like, no,
That was,
innovation happens with consistency, with repeatability,
yes.
right? Like I always, it's like for me, I always look at it as like innovation happens in threes. So it's like, okay, you have your first crack at it, and it may you either overshoot, undershoot, didn't really, you retweak it, then you kind of over calibrate, and then the third one you bring it right into the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so and we need to put that in, we need to build that into this, yeah, the innovation model. And it's
Yeah.
not just one, we did one pilot project on one thing for one show, one day, whatever. It's like, no, it has to be done multiple times.
Because you're learning over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Like a
That's a great way
framework
of,
for innovation, it's something like that.
yeah. Anyway, it's come up a lot for me recently. So it's definitely on my mind. So yeah, I think that's a great way to say it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Efficiency.
I mean, that's, yeah, isn't that what it is?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
Consistency and efficiency.
yeah. Yeah.
Love
Um,
it.
yeah. Well, um,
Yeah, that's the check-in.
that's it. Yeah, that's what we're doing this week or what we've been thinking about. So, hopefully, listeners, you all are up to some good work out there. And don't
Hmm.
forget to like and subscribe and share this with someone.
Totally.
Find an episode that resonates with you and share it around. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and we've got some incredible conversations dropping every week.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I love that.
I
Just
know.
like-
I know. It makes my heart sing. So,
yeah.
hope you all like it too.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the tie-in. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Tanner Watt. He's been part of the Reverb team for 14 years, starting with the organization in 2012, coordinating sustainable diesel for tours and working as an assistant project manager. Tanner has worked his way through the ranks and now leads Reverb's artist, industry, and brand relationships as his role as director of partnerships. We are super excited to speak with you, Tanner. So thank you for making the time. Maybe just give us a little more background about how you got to Reverb and what excites you and what drives you in this industry.
Wow, okay, that's a big question, but thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I came to
The
Reverb,
catch-all.
Yeah.
right? My trajectory was a very strange one. By the subtle magic of the universe, I ended up working for Willie Nelson and his family early in my life, and had the opportunity to work as the associate director of an organization that a woman named Kelly King from Pacific Biodiesel, who was the first retail biodiesel pump in the United States out on Maui, and the actress Daryl Hannah created an organization called the Sustainable Biodiesel Alliance. And so, as the associate director of that organization, part of my role was coordinating community-based, sustainably produced biodiesel. Back then, most of it was from waste products, used cooking oil, occasionally waste products from the meat industry, poultry fat, beef tallow, that sort of thing. But we really looked at, community scale, sustainably produced diesel alternatives, lower carbon alternative. That was Gen 1. Now now, they call it renewable diesel. They call it, HVO. There's a lot of different names for the newer technology that's used to create those diesel alternatives. And what used to be waste products are now have value. So I guess they don't technically count as waste anymore. They're actually commodities. But part of my role with the Sustainable Biodiesel Alliance was coordinating community-based fuels for trucks and buses on early Reverb tours. Reverb, as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, started a little over 20 years ago. Back then, it was artists like Fish, the Grateful Dead, Dave Matthews Band, and I would help connect local biodiesel providers with those tours, and we would get them sustainable alternatives, lower carbon alternative to running their trucks and buses on the tours. And then one year, Reverb's college tour, the Campus Consciousness Tour, they would always bring out a national nonprofit partner, and the Sustainable Biodiesel Alliance got to be that partner. And so I went on a short tour. I think it was about a month or 5 weeks, something like that. And Guster, Adam Gardner, one of the co-founders of the organization's band, was the headline band. And so traveled around the country doing shows and talking about biodiesel at colleges with Adam and got to know him well. And then when a position at Reverb opened up, I applied for it, and here I am today. So it's been a long journey, but something I've always been very passionate about. I think that the inspiration of seeing what Willie did with Farm Aid and taking a platform where people are paying attention, people love you, people are listening to you, you have this huge reach, and using that platform for something that's important to you, to try and be a positive force in the world, was super inspiring to me as a young man. And I saw Reverb doing that in the space of environmental issues, climate issues, single-use plastic solutions, community food security, these sorts of things, and really, jumped at the opportunity to be any sort of a part of it. And now, what I get to do is support artists, not only reducing impact on their tours and at festival events, but helping artists build programs to engage fans and support the causes they care about, both environmental and social. So it really is a dream job for me. It's a lot of work. It's never easy, long hours, but what they say, if you do what you love, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Wow.
so
Thank
cool.
you. Yeah.
I know that's like just it's so inspiring just to hear your story. I feel like there's a lot of similarities between like all of our work in terms of like one of the things that really stands out to me, and I feel myself in the struggle, and I wonder if like I'm just curious how you think about it. You know, early on introducing something new like sustainable biodiesel is, it's, I hear that, I'm getting the sense you did a lot of education, a lot of talking, these sorts of things, and it probably helped that folks like Willie Nelson and other, major um, artists are, embracing this stuff. But can you walk us through kind of, what it was like and maybe still is in some circumstances introducing this new thing to the industry? Because I'm sure there's like, similar challenges or, similar questions or things like that that come up. And I'm just curious how you handle these sorts of things and what it was like.
100%. I think that, biodiesel itself, when I first started, when I was with the SBA, even biodiesel was a tricky thing, right? It's something new. Yes, it's something that is a direct alternative for an existing liquid fuel. So you didn't have to change hardware. But in all honesty, every time there's something new, there's new challenges. There's things that we're learning about these products and these solutions all the time. And so, early biodiesel had issues with cold weather performance. The idea that, getting certified biodiesel and finding biodiesel that was made, so many different producers, the way that it was stored, there were issues early on, and we found ways to prevent those issues. We're very careful about the providers we used, and found solutions, but definitely it was a learning process. And I think that that's something that we see with every solution. Whatever the newest thing is, people are always afraid to adopt it. I think that when you have big names that are supporting it and willing to try it, that really does help. But I think that the thing that really gets it across the finish line is proving the viability and the reliability over and over again. But just like, I mean, in any technology, you can have failures, right? So whether you're using an intelligent battery system to power a stage, or whether you're using an old school, like a big giant diesel generator, whether you're using a twin pack generator running diesel fuel, whether you're running a generator running HVO, the new hydrogenated vegetable oil, or renewable diesel, which is a low carbon alternative that chemically is pretty much identical to diesel and works in the same hardware but puts off less carbon. Whether it's a battery, whether it's a generator, regardless of the fuel, you can always have technology failures, right? So
Hmm.
redundancy is something these days that we build into everything we do, whether it's a generator, traditional generator system, there's always a backup generator that is there for redundancy, whether it's a battery that has a generator as a backup or a battery that has a second battery bank as a backup. Redundancy is key, right? At the show, if you're at a festival, you're at a concert, the most important thing is that the show never quits. And it's important to point out that you can have gear failure regardless of whether it's new technology or existing technology. And making sure you're working with the right people, making sure that there's redundancy and safety involved. That's a huge piece of it. And then I think the other thing that really goes along with it is showing it again and again, right? Like doing it once on a small stage is one thing. Doing it on a large stage where you have 100,000 people watching is a completely different thing. And so that continued growth and the more people that see it, like the more fans that see it, the more fans that ask for it, the more production teams that see it work and see it work well, feel comfortable with it, the more artists that play on stages that between songs don't have the hum of an idling
Hmm.
semi truck motor, basically a diesel
Yeah.
generator behind them, and it's silent and the air doesn't smell smoky and carbon filled. That so it does take time to adopt these issues, and I think that or these solutions. And I think that it's also important to realize that not every solution works in every situation. And sometimes you find a solution and down the road, new information comes out and you're like, wow, okay, we kind of have to backtrack or we have to, make a turn away from that solution. I used to love the recycled polyester t-shirts. Oh, wow, cool. These super soft t-shirts, they're made out of recycled plastic bottles. This is amazing. A couple years down the road, you find out that those fabrics actually leach microplastics worse than many of the fabrics that are out there. And so it's like, okay, well, now I gotta not wear those things, and maybe that's not the best use for recycled plastic. So there's definitely learning involved in any of it, but a lot of it was finding people who were willing to champion it and who were willing to not just use it, but talk about using it. And it's no science is perfect, but it was a tougher road. But I think that after 20 years of doing it now with Reverb, we've seen such a big shift in the industry
Yeah.
that it's not nearly as difficult to get folks on board, proving that there's redundant safety systems in place, proving that this technology is just as reliable as the other technologies available, and it's better for the planet and for the people. And now that price parity is getting to be closer to traditional, solutions, I think that it's a much easier thing to quote unquote sell.
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you guys were so far ahead of your time in many respects. Probably one of the longest standing organizations that's been advancing these causes. I mean, even Zena and I have been at it for over a decade, and we started. It was difficult. It still is a challenge to this day. So, I mean, I think it feels like you found though the right voices to. I mean, with Willie, of course, championing this, but other stuff. Are you really leaning on the voices of the artists to help drive this, or is it a multi-prong thing? Because there seems to be a lot of different angles here, but we really do need the buy-in from the artists, but you need the buy-in from the concert goers and from the folks on the ground. How are you marrying those two to get awareness out there?
Well, certainly there are many facets to it, and it requires the support of all of the folks. Willie was a huge supporter of biodiesel in the beginning. That was his passion, and now biodiesel itself has changed quite a bit.
Mhm.
Newer renewable fuels have sort of replaced it for a while there. Once it became viable, the big oil companies figured out that they could buy out or devalue a product, buy out the producers of it, and create an additive rather than an alternative so that they could sell very low blends. So things have changed a lot, but I do think that having voices with folks listening to them, championing the idea of doing live music better, reducing impact within live music, finding ways to, be more efficient, to be less wasteful, to, try and eliminate single-use plastic waste, to try and, use more compostables, all these different facets to the impacts environmentally of live music. finding the right voices was huge. And, when it comes to the time we've been doing this, I've been doing it for a long time, but Reverb, I think pretty clearly, I can't think of anyone who was around at the time that Reverb was started. I mean, Adam Gardner, who's in the band, Guster, Lauren Sullivan, his wife, who's an environmental activist, has worked on rainforest causes and for many organizations over the years. They really created our organization through a simple conversation where it was like they were living at home, being aware of their impact on the environment, doing simple things like composting, recycling, trying to support community, buying things locally. And then Adam would go out on tour. And back then it was, diesel fuel and styrofoam and single-use
Yeah.
plastic. And so this simple conversation of, how can you live on tour more like we live at home is really what Reverb was born from. And they were very lucky that Bonnie Raitt and her nonprofit were
Mm.
willing to support them and get them out on the road that first year until they got their own nonprofit status. And from there, it really grew. And I think that even when I came to Reverb, a lot of the artists we were working with were the artists you might expect. The artists whose music or vibe or style connects them to the environment. Jack Johnson, he's a surfer. He's
Yeah.
lives in Hawaii. He cares about the ocean. He's clearly connected. The Grateful Dead, Fish, Bare Naked Ladies. These bands that were almost the quote unquote hippie bands or the bands that you would expect, right? And over time, we've seen that grow to now it's artists of all different genres that we work with. We work with some of the biggest pop stars in the world. We do all of Billie Eilish's global
Yeah.
touring, all of her efforts. The 1975, Lord. We work with electronic artists like Odessa. We work with country artists like Tyler Childers. So it's really about the idea itself has spread beyond just those that you might expect. But certainly their voices, I think, was the way that we got the momentum.
Hmm.
And then once you have fans seeing those solutions at shows and starting to expect it makes it much easier for the venues, the festivals to justify spending the dollars or to justify changing their approach to something when the fans are maybe not demanding it, but expecting it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. The most recent concert I've gone to is at the Luck reunion recently, and we met there. And one of the things I appreciated was this, just subtle but there signage about, this stage is decarbonized, right? We got to go behind the scenes and all the fun stuff, like we knew it, but it also had that message for fans as well. And stuff like that, and then the conversations that you guys had there to, talk more about what was going on and how it all came to be and these sorts of things, I thought was so great and just a nice I don't know, easy way of communicating to folks like this is happening. And we've talked to even folks on the podcast who have talked about the sort of fan enjoyment of being at festivals and concerts that where they see, sustainability in action, if you will, and just like the sort of, oh, okay, this is how it's going to roll. It's that sort of feeling. And like you said, folks start to expect it. You notice when you're at something that doesn't incorporate certain practices and you're like, okay, I guess I'll have to throw this cup away, that kind of thing. And so there is a difference there. And I love how you guys are putting it out in more ways than one. So
Well, I appreciate that very much. I think the Luck Reunion is probably my favorite event that we do year after year, and one of the most unique, as you know, experiencing one of
yeah.
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
single most unique festival event you'll ever go to, being that it's literally in a ghost town at Willie Nelson's ranch in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, just the most bizarre backdrop, and Willie has such an interesting mix of fans.
Yeah.
Cosmic
Totally.
Cowboy sort of. It's everyone from the traditional country fan to the hippie to the rocker, and the mix of artists and mix of style that comes together there is in itself very unique.
Hmm.
But my favorite thing about Luck is, we created a campaign called the Music Decarbonization Project back in
Yeah.
2023, where we started by focusing on what issues are creating the most carbon at live music events. One of the first pieces we looked at was pop-up power for music festivals, diesel
Yeah.
generators, not on-road vehicles, so they don't have to qualify for the same sort of emission control systems that you see on diesel vehicles on the road. They're used because
Hmm.
most festivals happen in a place that has nowhere near enough grid power or local solutions to power these. They're building
Mhm.
a huge stage or building this thing. And with Luck, it was the one of our like the perfect example of how that campaign is supposed to work because Matt Beiser and his team, who have always been amazing to work with, were not only excited to try the new stuff, but the first year we did it, we were able to use battery power on the stage. The second year we did it, we were able to expand those efforts and get rid of diesel generators throughout the venue itself. Then the third year, Matt and his team took it upon themselves to do even more, to expand grid power in locations where they knew they could eliminate using more diesel. Looking at shuttle systems to get people to the
Yeah.
concert to cut down carbon there. So the teach a man to fish idea is really exciting to me, especially with Luck. And it's one of those things that's already so special that it's kind of the perfect backdrop for it. Granted, it is a smaller event, and sometimes
Yeah.
smaller events are easier to scale these solutions to. But the fact that that team has really taken something that we started with them and made it part of like the entire ethos of that event of like, okay, how can we do better next year? How can we continue making this a cleaner, better event? How can we find more ways to support not just the environment, but the community? Luck
Hmm.
has their banquet the day before the festival that supports all of these amazing Texas-based hunger organizations. They have nonprofits out at the festival itself. They're finding ways to support people and the planet every chance they get. And I think that to your point, the signage and educating folks, it's a cool thing, right? Like you want people to know you're doing it, not only because it's super interesting, but there's value to the events themselves and to the companies putting on the events that people know these things are happening. If you're doing it bad, nobody's putting up signs saying,
Yeah.
"Man, we use 9,000 gallons of diesel at this event. Isn't that great?" Like I mean, this. But when you're doing something, whether it's supporting a community organization, like it's a great value for these companies to be able to show the fans that they're
Sure.
doing these things and then to be able to use that platform to actually connect the fans with those community organizations and with those national organizations, showing them how they can touch and feel ways they can be involved in these solutions. I think that that's what makes it even more powerful, right? It's like we can do what we can to reduce the impact and the carbon of our industry, but if you look at the pizza of all of the carbon on the planet, the live music industry is a teeny, teeny little
Oh yeah.
slice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But being able to use it to engage and inspire and win
Yeah.
hearts
And
and
amplify,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Around whether it's environmental or social causes, it's just such a magic,
Yeah.
it's a magic industry, and that's one of the reasons I really love being able to work in it, is that
Hmm.
it's one of the last things where when you're watching live music, when you're connecting with an artist, when there's a song you fall in love with or an album you fall in love with, it's one of the only things I can think of where it's truly an emotional connection. Like people are connected to the music they love in a way that's different from even film or television or physical art or sculpture, which are all amazing ways to express yourself and amazing creative expression forms. But music has something special to it that's I really think a magic connection. And when someone's at a show, there's some sort of openness to their
Hmm.
heart and their mind that makes it easier to put positive ideas in their head. And I think that that's something that Luck and even the larger festivals have really worked to do. Whether it's convincing someone to check their voter registration or to learn about a local community organization or to volunteer their hours to work at a community farm, whatever that
Yeah.
that thing is. I think that there's a real magic and real potential to shift culture in a way that has much bigger implications for the planet than even just our own industry.
Hmm. Hmm.
Amen.
I know.
It's yeah, like a couple things come to mind. I mean, one, it's like a blueprint, right? I mean, what you're doing there, and it's a replicable blueprint, right? Because I mean, it's the same sort of setup at every event even where there's a 10,000 person event or a 100,000 person event, I mean, it's just bigger in scale, which is incredible. Yeah, and the voices that you have to amplify those messages. I mean, even with Coldplay, I mean, we're seeing them now. They're just started off the North American leg of their tour, and it's powered by batteries, right? The show power guys are powering that entire tour with their battery system. So I mean, and they're a huge advocate for this and decarbonizing. So I mean, it's incredible the amount of reach that they have. But but we do have to make sure that people understand that it's happening though, because if you do your job right with batteries and renewable energy and everything looks good, it looks seamless and nobody really even notices, right? People notice even less when there's not waste and when there's not stuff and everything's moving in the right direction, right? So how has Reverb really leaned into that sort of education side, or are you doing that? Is it more subtle, or are you more overt in terms of awareness?
I think that in most cases, it depends on the artist and it depends on the event. Any tour that Reverb is on, we're focusing on either environmental cause campaign issues front of house or social cause campaign issues front of house. Backstage on any Reverb tour, there's different pieces of the puzzle being put together to reduce carbon everywhere we can, to collect data so that we can understand better the impacts that we can eliminate, to do things like donating unused food from catering and sometimes concession to local food organizations who can then distribute it and use it for folks that need it in the communities. Things like collecting hotel toiletries, which blew my mind. The idea that every little bottle of shampoo in every hotel that you go to, regardless of whether you open it or touch it, gets thrown away the next
Mm,
day for health and safety issues. So we have our tours collect all of those and then we donate them to organizations to make sure that they get used and then recycled. So backstage, there's a host of different, solutions being put together. Front of house, it sometimes is social action, sometimes it's environmental action, sometimes it's the crossover of both. But that's really something we believe is up to the artist, right? Like we don't want to tell people what to care about, but we believe that everyone cares about something.
yeah.
So if you go to a Tyler Childers show, you're learning about community support issues. You're learning about addiction recovery in Appalachia and how Hope in the Hills and Healing Appalachia, the organization that he supports, has done all this amazing work in that community. You're learning about the work that Reverb and the Nalgene Water Fund have done to address pollution issues and water access issues in Appalachia, where some of it is climate related, some of it is coal mining, closed coal mine pollution related, some of it is infrastructure related, some of it is economic related. But every show you go to, it's a different issue. If you go to a Billie Eilish show, you're learning about climate issues from Reverb. You're learning about the impact of plant-based meals through her organization, Support and Feed, which is another great partner of ours.
Mhm.
And fans are learning that, oh, wow, okay, if I take a pledge to eat one plant-based meal every month, I'll get this amazing report back at the end that will show me how many thousands, tens of thousands of gallons of water I saved, thousands of tons of carbon I prevented, and really engaging fans around the idea of animal-based agriculture and that impact on the planet, both the carbon, the methane, and other impacts, and the idea that what you eat matters. So it's different causes that we're using the platform for, but it's always part of the show and it's always branded as part of the tour and done in a positive and
Mhm.
solution based way. We don't ask artists to say things from stage. We don't ask artists to change their show. Everybody's there to see the concert, to have a good time. But when a fan sees, oh wow, this artist that I love so much cares about this issue so much, if I care about that issue or if I learn more about that issue, somehow I'm closer to that artist that I love so much. And Reverb works really hard to bring in national campaign organizations, sometimes global campaign organizations, but also to identify and bring out local community groups doing the same sort of work in every community a tour visits so that fans can, get the big picture idea, but then also see a way that they can be part of a positive solution right there in their own community. And I think that when you can touch it and feel it and recognize that it's something that actually impacts the community that you live in and that you're familiar with, that makes it much realer and makes it closer to the heart.
Hmm.
Um, and then again, it's got to be positive, right? Nobody wants to go
Yeah.
to a concert and get bummed out. Nobody
Totally.
wants
Yeah.
to, be told they're the bad guy because they didn't know about this in the past, or, it's about teaching somebody about an issue and then exciting them about some kind of positive solution that's easy to be a part of.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
really
non-political, right? And
Exactly.
non-political.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If everything were black and white, if it was conversations around, oh, we're the good guy because we see things this way, you're the bad guy because you don't, not only are you, losing the chance to have a meaningful conversation and potentially, empower or engage someone to change their opinion or to change their behavior, you're actually empowering the other side of the issue, because the minute someone makes you the bad guy, the other side is ready to open their arms and say, "Hey, you're not the bad guy. We'll make you feel." So it really has to be solutions oriented, and it has to be about, it's the climate crisis is not a political issue.
Yeah.
The idea that the air we breathe, the water we drink, the planet we live on has anything to do with politics is absolutely ridiculous if you ask me. And I think that,
Yeah.
you know,
Agreed.
it, it's a system that's used to make people who have so much in common and so little different blame each other for problems that are really being caused by a very, very small percent of a very, very small percent of our population. And I think that it's a sad thing. I think that all of us can get behind simple things like we all want clean water. We
Yeah.
all People
Mhm.
should have air that you can breathe. We all want, the children in our communities to not go hungry. We all, like these are all things that every human being agrees on. And the idea that somehow we can politicize them is, I don't know, that it's sad to me, but I do see less and less of it. I do see,
Yeah.
so many different types of artists, so many different types of fans all coming together around issues that matter to them and issues that overlap. It's
Hmm.
like whether it's people, whether it's the planet, the middle part of that Venn diagram is huge. I mean, our communities, our air, our water, our ecosystems, all of them are integrated and integral to each other. And so I think that if it's done in the right way in a positive environment and from a place of love, I think that it's a much easier conversation to have. And we've certainly seen, I mean, I think Reverb right now we're 8.2, 8.3 million fan actions through nonprofit causes since we started 20 years ago. So to think that over 8 million fans have taken action with a nonprofit cause, an environmental cause, a social cause, just because this platform was created at a show or a festival across a tour. I mean, that to me is the most exciting thing. We've done a lot
Hmm.
around we've reduced a ton of carbon, we've eliminated a ton of single use plastic, we've raised $21 million for nonprofit organizations and causes. But to me, it's, 8 million fan actions is 8 million people who are engaged around an issue that they cared enough about to take action on. And
Hmm.
that to me is where you get the needle to really move. It's like it's hearts and minds. It's giving money is great. And I'm not saying that folks with means shouldn't be supporting these causes because that's super important as well. But I really believe that engaging people and having meaningful conversations and positive conversations about the solutions, like that's the way that we really are going to be able to see a cultural shift and a positive change in the world that we live in.
Hmm. Hmm. Add good. Add good, like that's
Exactly.
quite a simple thing to think of. Just add good, and then we can go from there. Um, no, that's cool. I mean, in what you're saying, I hear, I know you are director of partnerships, so I'm curious, like how you guys approach partnerships, because this is so important, and like you said, the local community-based work and whatnot in different shows. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit for us, so because I feel like this is the kind of stuff, like we need more of this kind of stuff, and if we can in any way inspire folks, so I'm curious how you approach it.
I think that when it comes to organizations and nonprofit partners, we have an amazing director of community impact and partnerships, Paige Roth, who runs our local nonprofit partnerships. And she has a network of thousands of nonprofits that we've worked with. I think 6,000, 6,300, something like that, we've worked with over the years in different communities and connects those dots. But I think that it starts with finding, having a conversation with an artist and finding out what they truly care about.
Mhm.
And then it's about, okay, well, how can we, what are the solutions to these issues and how can we creatively make that exciting and positive and build it into the show? So I think that when it comes to partnering with causes and organizations, that's sort of the approach that we use, and we have an amazing team who does it. We bring out volunteers to every show. Fans of the artist come to the show to engage other fans of the artist. If a Billie Eilish fan is talking to another Billie Eilish fan about an issue, it's much easier. There's a connection there instantly. It's a much easier conversation to have. And then another role of the partnerships piece is within the industry. We have a great partnership with Universal Music Group. We work very closely with Billboard Magazine and Rolling Stone and South by Southwest, and finding ways where the industry itself wants to do better,
Mhm.
and how we can assist them, how we can help them tell that story, and how together we can do more. So I think that there's lots of different types of partnerships. The brands that we work with, I mean, we've worked with Nalgene for over 10 years. Our Rock and Refill program has raised literally millions of dollars for nonprofit causes and eliminated millions of single-use bottles. I believe close to 8 million single-use bottles at shows. I believe we've raised nearly $5 million for different nonprofit causes around the country. And, working with a brand who, their ethos is creating reusables,
Mhm.
eliminating single-use waste is the lifeblood of what they do. So finding the right partners. Martin Guitars has been a very great partner to us for years and years and years. Not only are they one of the oldest companies in the US, but they make these amazing, some of the best instruments in the world for acoustic guitars. And they are very focused on doing it in a way that's sustainable, both from an environmental impact perspective and also from the perspective of, the world is changing. Forests are being cut down. Deforestation is a huge issue. Not just how can we make what we make now better, but how can we design instruments moving forward that use wood that doesn't take as long to grow, that is not endangered, that is easier to cultivate, waste wood. So finding the partners, I think, that have similar ideas of things in general,
Mhm.
and then finding the partners that make things that bring something to the table. When fans come to a Billie Eilish show, there's custom Billie Eilish Nalgene bottles as part of the Rock and Refill program that they can make a donation for. We have filtered water stations set up at every show for our fans. They can fill those bottles up, use them the whole time, not purchase any single-use plastic, bring them home, continue to use them. And then the dollars from those bottles go to support different causes, support and feed, Reverb's nonprofit mission, the Nalgene Water Fund, which is giving safe, clean drinking water access to people all over the world and the US. Like, so finding those pieces, like to me, it's sort of like it's finding the right puzzle pieces
Yeah.
for the right partnerships. But I think it's all about, partners. I mean, no one of us can
Yeah.
do this alone. But once you start helping one partner, they want to help you more. And it's that, that working together, and that continued commitment towards, making things better is the most important thing. It's like, Chris is absolutely the person that people most recognize from Coldplay, and he's outspoken about the environment and about so many wonderful causes, and he's educated and engaged so many people around the issues of climate change and the climate crisis. But that tour, there's well over 100 people that make that tour run and make that tour the smooth running machine that it is. And all of them working together, whether it's show power, bringing in battery for additional powers instead of using diesel power, whether it's, the nonprofits that Chris is supporting, whether it's, every crew member on it. So it's important to realize that it's a whole bunch of
Yeah.
folks that are all working towards the same goal. And that positivity, I think, just like really expands. I mean, we don't work directly with Coldplay, but the reason we work with Billie Eilish is because Billie's mom, Maggie Baird, who is an amazing activist herself, had a conversation with Chris. and was
Hmm.
like, we really want to do something on our tour. We want to do it better. We want to find ways to reduce the environmental impact. We want to find ways to talk to fans about these issues. And Chris was the one who said, you need to talk to Reverb. And so it's this like
Amazing.
this, this shared this shared want for the world to be a better place, and this shared love of like music and the magic that it brings to all of us, I think has really made this movement expand. 20
Hmm.
years ago it was basically Reverb doing this on their own. And 20 years later, there's, the Music Sustainability Alliance and the
Yeah.
fact that there are, you know, for-profit companies, sustainability experts at every major festival company, nonprofit organizations, sustainable merch vendors,
Hmm.
upcyclers, all of these people within the industry working together towards common goals. I think that to me is the most exciting thing, right? Like you can't get much done alone, and identifying the partners, the right partners, and then treating everything like a true partnership is the way that we've been successful with it. The idea that, in a partnership, everyone has to feel like they succeeded at the end of the day. Well,
Hmm.
what Reverb brings to the table is good for the artist. It makes the artist feel good. It makes the show feel better. It makes the community good. It makes the community feel better. It helps Reverb. It helps the fans. It's about those true partnerships, finding out, how can you help us, but how can we help you? And I think that we've been really blessed to find so many partners, both artists, industry, behind the scenes crew, festivals, companies like Nalgene and Martin. It really has grown into a wonderful, wonderful thing that's constantly evolving and constantly changing. But really, it's a network of people who care and organizations who care and companies and businesses that care. And that's to me, I think that's the only way that we continue to grow and continue to increase the positive impact of all of this.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because it takes everyone, right? It takes every type of organization, and there's like so many service providers and vendors and all that come together to make these events happen. And it's great to be able to pull them all together and work toward a common cause in this and that sort of thing. Um, I'm curious. I know you guys, you mentioned some stats, but just you've been collecting data for years. Can you just walk us through like what, major impacts you're seeing in the data that you've got? I assume fan travel, getting to the festival itself is a big one. We see that in other industries as well. But can you just help orient us a little bit on that?
So I think when I started early on, Reverb was looking at things like simple carbon footprint, plastic waste, recycling rates, landfill waste, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that as we grew and as the attention shifted, we learned more about our industry. We can't take credit for calling it out. I think, Tom York from Radiohead wrote in his blog in like 2004 or 2005
Okay.
that fan travel is obviously the biggest carbon footprint of any live music event, and he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
Since then, we've definitely learned more. Madeline Weir, our director of impact, was a big force behind our music decarbonization project. Just released this fan travel study and
Okay.
or concert travel study. I'm sorry, but we literally for 2 years surveyed fans at I believe 170 or 180 different shows, over 35,000 fans, and we looked at not only how did fans get to shows, but would they change that behavior? What sort of options would they consider? And what were the barriers to them adopting those changes? And I think that we found a lot of really interesting things out. We found that most fans, a big, big number of fans, would happily carpool or take public transportation or take an EV rather than a traditional fueled vehicle if the situation was right. If there's incentives to do so, if there's, are the subway platforms that get you to and from the show you're going to in New York, do they feel safe to you? Are they well lit at late at night when you're leaving a show? Are there public transit routes that run to the venue, in an easy way, or do they even exist?
Hmm.
So really understanding not just how bad is it? Which it's bad, depending on the type of show or the festival itself. It could be anywhere from 60%, 70% to 80 or 90% of the carbon impact of a show coming from that fan travel.
Hmm.
But we really dug into Madeline really dug into how, what are the solutions and what's stopping people from adopting those solutions. And I think a big thing that we learned was the solutions are different in every market, right? Like
Hmm.
if you're in a market that's inside a city and there's public transportation existing around it, it
Yeah.
makes it easy. If you live in Colorado and you have this beautiful, iconic Red Rocks venue that's right there, it's crazy. There are no bus systems that run from the metropolitan area to
Yeah.
Red Rocks. And, looking at, okay, well, if there were, people would take them. And so, like, understanding that the solutions are different in each place.
Hmm.
And then also understanding that when you look at fans who travel to shows, even though a very small percentage of those fans fly to shows, the carbon impact of that very small percentage of fans who flew to the show represents a huge percentage of the carbon impact of all of the fan travel for that show.
Hmm.
And that's a thing that's important to recognize because while intentions are very good, certain artists have had the ideas of like, okay, well, I'm only going to tour in one continent a year because I don't want the carbon impact of my tour to have to go, here to here to here to here, which totally makes sense. Or I'm going to set up a few very small residencies in a few areas, but that's it. And that's great if somehow you can prevent the fans from all over the world coming. And
Traveling in.
yeah, it depends on the fan base, right? If you're an artist who or a band whose fan base has means and you only play shows in a few locations, if your fans have money, they're going to come to your shows. And that represents a large carbon footprint. And the idea that, yeah, it's a big carbon footprint to move a tour around. It's a way bigger carbon footprint to fly all of the fans from around the world to one location. So really understanding the issue from a higher level and breaking up the data like we were able to do. Well, I shouldn't say we, I'm not, my brain's not big enough for
Mhm.
that. Madeline, our impact director, and the folks at Renewable Energy Lab and others that she worked with really were the ones that crunched the numbers. But it really is it's a complicated issue. And you see some artists who are making the choice to, they recognize, okay, I can't stop fans from flying to my shows. So I'm going to bundle packages with,
Hmm.
lodging, tickets, flights, EV or hybrid transportation to the show. And within those
Hmm.
packages, I'm going to bundle, support for verified measurable carbon impact, carbon impact projects within that. Some bands have committed dollars. Some artists look at, carbon offsets are a good start, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Carbon offset that costs $20 is a ton
Hmm.
of carbon in our atmosphere. Does $20 really solve the problem? Probably not.
No.
So many artists have committed, like, okay, well, I'm going to understand what my carbon footprint is,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to say that I'm net zero. I'm not going to say that I'm carbon
Yeah.
neutral, but I am going to commit dollars for, to all of these projects that
Yeah.
I know are drawing down carbon, whether it's high tech stuff like direct air capture, where they're, literally pulling carbon out of the atmosphere, liquefying it, injecting it into porous stone and creating carbonite where it's trapped forever, which is
Yeah.
amazing, also very
Yeah.
expensive, or whether they're supporting, protecting mangroves or old age forests that are huge carbon sequestration, or looking at regenerative agriculture. So a lot of artists are
Yeah.
addressing it because yeah, you can't eliminate all of the problems, and people
Right.
are going to travel and people are going to fly. And so I think that it's a tricky one, right? Like we can't
Hmm.
Yeah.
music. We can't look at nations that now have developing middle classes and means and say, oh, well, you don't get to do all of the things that
Yeah.
we've enjoyed and done. It's even hard, like, and not that I support deforestation at all, but it's absolutely a tricky conversation to look at a developing nation that chooses to cut down old growth forest or rainforest because it's financially better for their community and their
Yeah.
economy. And for us to sit in the country and say, no, you can't do that, it's bad for the planet. Well, if you look at history, we cut down nearly 90% of our old growth forest in the United States just to power our
Yeah.
industrial revolution, which is the reason that we are an economic powerhouse now. So it really is a complex conversation and math equation when you look at all of it. And it's important to consider how we as nations with means can support developing nations and indigenous communities to make sure that they have access to clean energy solutions because it's a long history and a complicated math problem, so there is no one solution,
Hmm.
but that travel piece is huge,
Yeah.
to bring it all
Yeah.
the way back. I apologize if
Yeah, yeah,
And
no, it's great.
but
but it's
but also
it
like I
is
mean but starting somewhere is also the place, right? I
Yeah.
think that's been there's been a lot of paralysis in this because the term climate change as it's evolving now, even now, new sort of political terms are changing. Is so ominous and so it's just like, okay, what can I do? So what I love about Reverb, what you guys have been doing for a long time now, is making it palatable, making it bite-sized, getting it out there, getting the message out there, and making it happen one community at a time, one tour at a time. Um, and that's
There's
really
so much
amazing.
that you can do. Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's so many things that each of us can do. And yes, those of us who have more can do more, but there's so much that can be done and you have to
Hmm.
keep the perspective in a positive place because, the negativity doesn't solve anything and being excited about positive solutions, I truly believe is the way that we get where we
yeah,
need to be.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is hard. It's an interesting climate right now, no pun
yeah,
intended, but
yeah,
it is an interesting thing where you have, people in power who are getting rid of the folks that tally up what is the actual financial cost of extreme weather and climate related events.
yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
well, let's do that so that there is no number to point to, so we can say,
Right.
wouldn't it be less
But it doesn't
expensive
go
to
away.
actually change our behavior than to keep having to,
Yeah,
do all that? So it is an interesting thing, and I think that more than anything, it's short-sightedness. It's folks
Yeah.
yeah,
that want to, increase their wealth or whatever it is in the very short term, but are missing the point that the short term
Hmm.
doesn't matter,
yeah.
Like,
It doesn't
it's
it
the
doesn't go
long term.
away.
Yeah.
The
But that's
issues are
what
still there.
yeah,
Well,
and that's why I think why we're so lucky in the music space because what all of this is going to require to get us where we need to be. And it's probably not us three. We'll be okay through our lives. It'll change, but it's my kids and my kids' kids that I really have to consider. And I
hmm.
really believe that the way that we get where we need to be is through that positive cultural change. And I think that that's what makes action in music specifically, art as well, but music specifically so important because it's if an artist wears a funny hat on stage, 1,000 kids go out and buy a funny hat. If we can make it cool to do good, if we can make it, if we can make, subtly shift culture in a way where it doesn't just feel good, it feels hip and it feels cool and it feels popular to do all of these positive things and to support these communities and to support our own communities. I really think that, I'm very hopeful for the future. I'm not pessimistic at all, but I think that it really has to be we have to keep it positive. We have to keep it, light
Yeah,
enough that we can move culture in that direction. And that's why I think it's so important to not only consider the global issues and the global, scale of climate, but to really focus in on the community because finding ways to get involved in solutions in your own community
Hmm.
is something that you can touch and feel the impact. It feels great. It connects you to more people in your community. It creates conversations, and all of those communities and all of those actions really magnify. Global efforts are important and global issues are important to understand, but it also feels overwhelming when you're like, I
Yeah.
can't, how am
yeah,
I going to fix this thing that's worldwide that's so
Hmm.
enormous? But when it
yeah,
becomes this thing of like, oh, wow, here's something that I can do in my own community that's
yeah,
positive, that has a real environmental and a real community and social impact that's positive, like those things are the things that I think not only help move the needle scientifically and data wise, but they also they connect people within the community and it makes you feel so good. There's some sort of magical, the same kind of magical energy you get at a show you get when you're doing good in your community and you're connecting with your
Yeah.
community. And I think that
Yeah.
that's where the hope comes from, and that's why we're all going to be okay, is because
Yeah.
Oh,
it's we all want to support our communities. We all want to be a part of something, and whether we realize it or not, we already are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
amazing. Tanner.
100%. I
Wow.
know.
I think we're just gonna like on that note,
I
that
know.
was amazing. We could keep riffing on this for
I
another
talk
hour,
about
I'm
this all
sure.
day.
And I can feel your passion and your devotion to this cause, and making this change happen. And Reverb has been doing that for 20 years, and it's amazing to hear you, and it was great to see you as well share that same passion on stage, at Willie Nelson's Luck Reunion as well, that we had the pleasure of being at. So
Hopefully,
thank
we'll
you
see
so
you there
much.
next year too. Thank you
Uh,
so much for having me. I mean, I apologize. Sometimes I go down rabbit holes with this
I
stuff, but
love
it
it.
no, we love it. We
This
were just
is
sitting here
excites
just being
me.
like,
Yeah, it
yeah,
excites me,
yeah.
and it gets me worked up. And
I love it.
the technology is interesting, but I think that
the
the
people.
potential for the positive change that it has,
Yeah.
for all of us, for people
It's a
and the
social
planet,
change too, right?
that's
It's a social and
yeah,
technical
it's all the
change.
same thing, right? Like
Yeah.
we're all the same thing, man. It's
Yeah.
the planet, whether the planet, the people, the communities. It really is. Everything is connected, and it all
Yeah.
is the same thing. And I just think that I'd bring it all back to, you saw it all over Luck, right? It's the Nelson family.
Totally.
Yeah.
If everyone can just live by the rules, don't be an asshole, rule number one. Don't
Yeah.
be an asshole, rule number two. And don't be a damn asshole, rule number three. The
We're
world would be a
good.
much better place, right? It's
Um,
add good, like you said.
Add good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tanner, how just quickly, how can people find out more about Reverb and about yourself, and yeah, give us
You can
some.
check us out at reverb.org, or go to musicdecarbonizationproject.org if you want to look at the campaign itself. You can find a Reverb Eco Village or Action Village out on tour with Billie Eilish, with Lorde, with Tyler Childers, tons of artists. Guster is getting ready to go out on tour right now.
Mhm.
We'll be out with Guster. Bare Naked Ladies launched today, or I think
Nice.
today is the first show of the tour. We'll be out there with them. So lots of tours, but check us out, reverb.org. And if you want to volunteer, it's a great way to come
Yeah,
and see a show for free, connect with other fans, learn about issues in your community. At reverb.org, you can check out volunteer opportunities and come volunteer with us at a show from the time doors open through the opening act. Get to stay and watch the headline show and be a part of something awesome, and make some
I love
friends.
it.
No bad stuff.
I
Awesome.
love it. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you,
Thank you
Tanner.
so much. Really
Absolutely. Thank you
appreciate
for
this
having me.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation. Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Social media is by Picnic Social. Our producer is Colin Miller.